September 3rd, 1941, Eastern Front, near Smolensk, Russia. Oberleutnant Hans Muller stood on the platform of Panzerzeug 13, his boots clicking against the steel plating as he scanned the forest ahead. The armored train's 150mm howitzer, mounted on the forward flat car, gleamed in the afternoon sun, its barrel raised, ready to fire. Behind him, crew members checked the train's machine guns, their gloved hands tightening belts of 7.92mm ammunition. The air smelled of diesel and gun oil, mixed with the distant smoke of burning villages. Muller raised his binoculars. Through the trees, he spotted Soviet infantry moving toward the tracks. "Load the howitzer," he called. "High explosive round. Target 800 yards. This was Panzerzeug 13's first combat mission, a test of whether a train, clad in steel and armed with heavy guns, could hold its own against enemy ground forces. For Muller and his 45-man crew, it was more than a test. It was a chance to prove that the Nazi regime's moving fortress could turn the tide of the Eastern Front. The Nazi armored train was not a new idea. Armored trains have been used in World War I, most notably by the Russians and Austro-Hungarians, to protect supply lines and support infantry. But Hitler and the Wehrmacht saw potential for something more ambitious. By 1941, Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union was bogging down. Roads were muddy, tanks were breaking down, and supply convoys were vulnerable to partisan attacks. The solution, Hitler argued, was to turn railways, Germany's most reliable transportation network, into weapons. An armored train could carry heavy artillery, transport troops, and defend itself against air and ground attacks. It could reach the front lines faster than tanks, resupply units in remote areas, and act as a mobile command post. By the end of 1941, the Wehrmacht had ordered 20 armored trains, each designed to be a self-contained fortress on rails. Panzerzeug 13 was the first to see combat, but its creation was not without controversy. Military planners debated whether armored trains were a waste of resources, steel and guns that could be used for tanks or battleships. For Muller, a veteran of the French campaign, the answer was clear. A train can't get stuck in mud, he told the crew, and it can bring firepower where tanks can't reach. The technical origins of the Nazi armored train trace back to 1938, when the Wehrmacht Ordnance Office commissioned Krupp and Siemens to design a prototype. The initial concept was simple: modify a standard freight train with steel armor and mount heavy guns on flat cars. But early tests revealed flaws. The armor was too thin, 10 millimeters at first, easily penetrated by anti-tank rifles. The guns were too light, 75 millimeters cannons that lacked the firepower to destroy enemy bunkers. By 1940, the design had been overhauled. The new prototype, codenamed Eisenfestung, Iron Fortress, featured 50 millimeters armor plating on all cars, a 150 millimeters howitzer for long-range fire, two 88 millimeters anti-tank guns for close defense, and 6 MG-34 machine guns to repel infantry. The train's locomotive was also armored, its boiler and cab protected by 40 millimeter steel, and its wheels fitted with reinforced axles to support the extra weight. The Eisenfestung was 250 feet long, weighed 280 tons, and could reach 45 miles per hour, fast enough to outrun most Soviet tanks. It required a crew of 45. Engineers to run the locomotive, gunners for the artillery and machine guns, mechanics to maintain the weapons, and a command team to coordinate missions. In 1941, after 18 months of testing, the first production model, Panzerzeug 13, was deployed to the Eastern Front. Building an armored train was more complex than simply adding steel to a freight car. Every component had to be redesigned to handle the weight of armor and weapons while still functioning on standard railway tracks. The first challenge was armor. The Wehrmacht specified that the train must withstand hits from 37mm anti-tank guns at 500 yards, a common Soviet weapon. Krupp's engineers settled on 50mm homogeneous steel plating for the main cars, with 60mm plating around a locomotive's boiler, the most vulnerable part. The plating was bolted to a frame of steel beams, creating a box around each car. Windows were replaced with armored shutters, and doors were fitted with double locks and rubber gaskets to keep out gas or shrapnel. The armor added 80 tons to the train's weight, which meant reinforcing the undercarriages. Siemens designed new axles and springs, using steel alloy that could support 30 tons per axle, twice the capacity of a standard freight car. The wheels were also modified, with thicker rims to prevent wear on the tracks. The second challenge was armament. The train needed a mix of weapons to handle different threats. Long-range artillery for enemy positions, anti-tank guns for armor, and machine guns for infantry. The forward flat car carried a 150mm SFH-18 howitzer, borrowed from the Wehrmacht's field artillery units, capable of firing a 43 kilograms high-explosive round 13 kilometers. It was mounted on a rotating platform, allowing it to fire 360 degrees, and protected by a 40mm armored shield. Behind the howitzer car were two flat cars with 88mm Flak 36 guns, originally anti-aircraft weapons, but modified for ground use. The 88mm could penetrate 100mm of armor at 1,000 yards, enough to destroy any Soviet tank. Each 88mm car also had two MG-34 machine guns, mounted on pinwheels for anti-infantry fire. The middle cars were for troop transport and supplies. One car held 50 infantrymen, enough to reinforce a frontline unit. Another carried 10 tons of ammunition and 5,000 liters of diesel, and a third served as a field hospital with 2 doctors and 4 medics. The rear car was a command post, fitted with a radio room, a map table, and a small sleeping area for the crew. It was protected by 2 more MG-34s and a 20mm Flak 38 anti-aircraft gun, critical for defending against Soviet fighter bombers. The third challenge was mobility. An armored train was only useful if it could move quickly and reliably. The locomotive, a modified DRB Class 52 Maus freight engine, was fitted with a supercharged diesel engine that produced 1,500 horsepower, enough to pull the 280-ton train up steep grades. It also had a secondary gasoline engine, stored in a separate car that could be connected in case the diesel failed. The train carried extra parts, pistons, gears, even a spare axle, to repair breakdowns in the field. To navigate, the crew used a combination of railway maps and a portable radar set borrowed from the Luftwaffe that could detect enemy troops or mines ahead of the tracks. The train's biggest limitation was its dependence on rails. If the tracks were damaged by bombs, mines, or partisans, the train was stuck. To fix this, the Wehrmacht assigned a platoon of engineers to each armored train, equipped with tools to repair tracks and remove obstacles. Muller's crew, for example, carried 20 meters of spare rail, 50 sleepers, and a small crane to lift damaged sections. Panzerzug 13's first combat mission near Smolensk was a baptism by fire. On September 3, 1941, Soviet infantry attacked the train's position, hoping to destroy the tracks and cut off German supply lines. Muller's crew responded quickly, The 150mm howitzer fired 3 rounds, hitting the Soviet positions and scattering the infantry. When a group of Soviet T-26 tanks approached, 6 in total, the 88mm guns opened fire. The first tank was hit at 900 yards, its turret blown off by the 88mm round. The second was disabled by a hit to its tracks. The remaining 4 retreated. For 2 hours, the train exchanged fire with Soviet snipers and machine guns. By dusk, the Soviets had withdrawn, leaving 70 dead and 3 captured. Panzerjäger 13 suffered no casualties. Its armor had withstood several hits from anti-tank rifles, and its machine guns had repelled all infantry attacks. Muller's after-action report was glowing. The armored train exceeds all expectations. It can defend itself against ground forces and provide fire support to infantry. It is a valuable asset for the Eastern Front. Word of Panzerjäger 13's success spread quickly. By October 1941, 5 more armored trains were deployed to the Eastern Front, each assigned to protect supply lines or support infantry attacks. Panzerjäger 7, stationed near Leningrad, became known for its role in repelling partisan raids. In one incident, 200 partisans attacked the train with mines and grenades. The train's machine guns cut down 50 partisans, and its 150mm howitzer destroyed the partisan camp. Panzerjäger 15, operating in Ukraine, was used to resupply a German infantry division surrounded by Soviet troops. It broke through the Soviet lines, delivered 8 tons of ammunition and 2,000 rations, and evacuated 30 wounded soldiers, all while under fire. The Wehrmacht High Command was impressed. In November 1941, Hitler ordered 30 more armored trains, with plans to deploy them to North Africa and Western Europe. But the expansion came with problems. Steel shortages forced engineers to use thinner armor, 30mm instead of 50mm, on the new trains. This made them vulnerable to Soviet 76mm anti-tank guns, which could penetrate 30mm of steel at 1,000 yards. In December 1941, Panzerjäger 9 was hit by a 76mm round near Moscow, killing 3 crew members and disabling its forward howitzer. It was the first armored train lost to enemy fire. The Eastern Front's harsh winter posed another threat. Temperatures dropped to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, freezing the train's diesel engines and jamming its guns. Crews had to start the engines every 2 hours to prevent them from seizing, and they wrapped the gun barrels in blankets to keep the mechanisms from freezing. Even so, breakdowns are common. Panzerjäger 13 was stranded for 3 days in January 1942, its engine frozen solid, until a rescue team arrived with heaters. The cold also affected the crew. Frostbite was rampant. Muller lost 2 fingers on his left hand after a night of manning a machine gun. The winter was worse than the Soviets, he later wrote in his memoir. You could fight the enemy. You couldn't fight the cold. By 1942, the Wehrmacht had learned to adapt. New armored trains were fitted with engine heaters and insulated gun mechanisms. Crews were issued better winter clothing, fur hats, woolen gloves, and insulated boots. The trains also received upgrades to their weapons. The 150mm howitzers were modified to fire smoke rounds, which could hide the train from air attacks, and the 88mm guns were fitted with better sights for low-light conditions. These improvements paid off. In March 1942, Panzerjäger 13 supported the German offensive near Kharkov, firing 120 rounds from its howitzer and destroying 12 Soviet bunkers. The train's anti-aircraft gun also shot down a Soviet IL-2 Sturmovik fighter bomber. the first air kill for an armored train. But the armored train's success was not without cost. Each train required 1,000 tons of steel to build, enough to make 10 Panzer IV tanks. The 150mm howitzers were in short supply, as they were also needed for field artillery units. By mid-1942, the Wehrmacht was forced to slow production of armored trains, diverting steel and guns to tank factories. Only 12 more trains were built in 1942, half the number Hitler had ordered. Military planners also began to question the train's value. Tanks were more mobile. They could leave the tracks and attack enemy flanks, while armored trains were tied to railways. Partisans, too, were learning to fight back. They began laying mines on the tracks at night, then ambushing the train when it stopped to clear them. In July 1942, Panzerzug 17 hit a mine near Stalingrad, derailing 2 cars and killing 10 crew members. The partisans then attacked with machine guns and grenades, destroying the train's 88mm guns before German reinforcements arrived. The turning point for Nazi armored trains came in 1943, with the Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle in history. The Wehrmacht deployed 5 armored trains to support the offensive, including Panzerzug 13. Their job was to protect the flanks of the German tank divisions and resupply them with ammunition. But the Soviets had prepared extensive defenses, anti-tank mines, artillery positions, and air superiority. On July 12, 1943, Panzerzug 13 was attacked by a squadron of Soviet IL-2s. The train's anti-aircraft guns shot down one IL-2, but the others dropped bombs, damaging the locomotive and setting a supply car on fire. Muller ordered the crew to abandon the train, but 15 men were killed before they could escape. Panzerzug 13 was destroyed. The first armored train lost the air attack. By the end of the Battle of Kursk, 3 more armored trains had been destroyed, and the remaining 2 were withdrawn to Germany for repairs. The Wehrmacht High Command concluded that armored trains were too vulnerable to air attack to be effective on major battlefields. But the story of Nazi armored trains did not end there. As the war turned against Germany, the Wehrmacht repurposed the remaining trains for homeland defense. By 1944, Allied bombers were pounding German cities, and partisan attacks on railways were increasing. Armored trains were used to patrol critical railway lines, like those connecting Berlin to the Ruhr Valley, Germany's industrial heartland, and protect convoys carrying coal and steel. Panzerzug 5, stationed in Poland, became known for its role in fighting the Polish Home Army. In August 1944, during the Warsaw Uprising, the train fired over 500 rounds into the city, destroying partisan strongholds and supporting German infantry. But even here, the trains faced new threats. The Allies had begun dropping railway bombs, devices that attached to tracks and exploded when a train passed over them. In September 1944, Panzerzug 8 hit a railway bomb near Dresden, derailing and killing 22 crew members. The final months of the war saw the last Nazi armored trains fighting a losing battle. By January 1945, only 8 trains remained in service. Most were deployed to the Eastern Front, where they tried to slow the Soviet advance. Panzerzug 3, the last operational train, was stationed near Berlin in April 1945. Its crew, led by Muller, now a Hauptmann, fought off Soviet tanks and infantry for 3 days, using its 150mm howitzer to destroy 10 tanks. But on April 25, 1945, the train ran out of ammunition. Muller ordered the crew to destroy the weapons and abandon the train. They set fire to the locomotive and fled into the forest. The Soviets captured the train the next day, its steel plating blackened by fire, its guns silent. Muller was captured by Soviet troops in May 1945 and spent 10 years in a prisoner of war camp. He was released in 1955, returned to Germany to work as a railway engineer. The legacy of Nazi armored trains is a mixed one. They were a technical success, proving that a train could be turned into a formidable weapon, but a strategic failure. They were too dependent on railways, too vulnerable to air attack, and too expensive to build in large numbers. By the end of the war, the Wehrmacht had built 48 armored trains, but 32 had been destroyed or captured. The remaining 16 were scrapped by the Allies. Their steel used to rebuild Europe's railways. But the train's influence extended beyond World War II. They inspired post-war designs for military trains, most notably by the Soviet Union, which built over 100 armored trains during the Cold War to protect its border with China. The concept of a moving fortress also influenced modern military vehicles, like the U.S. Army Stryker armored personnel carrier, which combines mobility and firepower in a self-contained unit. For the crews who served on Nazi armored trains, the experience was a mix of pride and terror. Muller, in his memoirs, wrote of the camaraderie among the crew, how they shared rations, repaired the train together, and fought side by side. But he also wrote of the fear, the sound of enemy bombs, the jolt of a mine, the sight of crew members falling to machine gun fire. We were a fortress, he wrote. But fortress on rails is still a target. Many crew members did not survive the war. Of the 45 men who served on Panzerjäger 13, only 12 lived to see Germany surrender. Today, only fragments of Nazi armored trains remain. A 150mm howitzer from Panzerjäger 13 is on display at the Museum of the Great Patriotic War in Moscow, its barrel still scarred by shrapnel. A section of armor plating from Panzerjäger 5 is in the Warsaw Uprising Museum, a reminder of the train's role in the 1944 uprising. These artifacts are not just relics of war. They are symbols of a regime's attempt to turn everyday technology into a weapon, and of the men who were forced to fight in it. The Nazi armored train also offers a window into the broader strategy of the Third Reich. Hitler and his generals believed that technology alone could win the war, whether it was armored trains, V-2 rockets, or jet fighters. But they underestimated the importance of logistics, mobility, and the enemy's ability to adapt. Armored trains were a clever idea, but they could not overcome Germany's shortages of steel, fuel, and trained personnel. They could not stop the Soviet advance or the Allied bombing campaigns. In the end, they were just another example of how the Nazi regime's ambition outpaced its capabilities. September 3, 1941, the day of Panzerjäger 13's first combat mission, remains a pivotal moment in the history of armored trains. Hans Muller and his crew proved that a train could fight and win against enemy ground forces, but their success was short-lived. The war moved on, and armored trains were left behind by newer, more mobile weapons. Yet their legacy lives on. Every time a military vehicle combines mobility and firepower, every time a railway is used to support troops in combat, the influence of the Nazi armored train can be seen. It was a flawed weapon, but it was also a testament to human ingenuity, even in the darkest of times. In the end, the Nazi armored train is a story about more than steel and guns. It is a story about the choices nations make in war, about what they value, what they sacrifice, and what they believe will lead them to victory. For Germany, the armored train was a gamble that did not pay off. But for military historians and engineers, it remains a fascinating example of how war can drive innovation, even when that innovation is used in the service of a brutal regime. The moving fortress across Europe is gone, but its lessons endure.